Hello guys, how are you? Today I'm recording this from the south of Spain, Almeria. Today we'll be talking about spoon-fed, why almost everything we've been told about food is wrong, by Team Spector. We'll be talking about and uncovering a lot of the myths we've been told all through our life and some big and important recommendations in order to have a healthy life and find your way in order to have high levels of energy, reduce fat levels, have a healthier lifestyle, and at the same time take care of the environment. So let's get started. Firstly, who is Tim Spector? He's a British epidemiologist and geneticist that I think he's currently at King's College in London. Well, he has extensive research into genetics, the microbiome, and their effects on wealth, particularly in the context of nutrition. So he's established as a really credible authority in this field. So, some of the myths that we've been told since we were born and we grew up were, for example, that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, calories accurately measure how fattening a food is, saturated fat is a major cause of heart disease, national guidelines and diet plans apply to everyone. For example, salt, we all need to reduce our salt intake, or veganism is the healthiest diet that we could follow. Even there are many myths. All meat is bad for us. Firstly, I want to talk about the nutritional guidelines and diet plans apply to everyone. So this has been super proven that there is not a single diet for everyone. So there are trillions of bacteria that live in our guts, and collectively they are known as the microbiome. It's said that it's so complex it could be considered as a second brain. Therefore, we really need to understand how our microbiome um, answers and responds to food. Therefore, all of the myths that I will be talking about are highly dependent on each microbiome system. So, for example, attempting to follow prescriptive and average guidelines or someone else's special diet has a high chance of failure, such as bloggers, influencers. Nowadays, everyone wants to give tips into how to follow a healthy lifestyle. But this has a high chance of failure. Why? Because each one has a different microbiome in comparison to other people. Therefore, you need to be more selective in the information we believe about food. So, some recommendations in order to improve your microbiome are, for example, eating more plants, eating different plant species that we can eat in the same week. So ideally 20 to 30 species of plants during the week. So this will make you healthier and more diverse, so our microbiome will become stronger and it would produce more bacteria which will help keep your body in a good shape. Eating everything, grains, leaves, bulbs, flowers, seeds, nuts, roots, herbs, or even species, everything. And keeping these plants as whole as possible, with less mechanical or chemical processing, which is sensible for your microbiome. Because the more chemicals you eat, the worst, I don't want to say the F word, but it's FU, you know? Like it's super bad, all of the chemicals. Now I'll come to it. So there are some products as well, like probiotics or fermented foods, which are helpful to give our gut community a regular exposure to fresh live microbes, as well eating good quality cheese, etc. Then he recommends, if you want to keep track of how these different foods affect you, you can buy like a personal glucose monitor, which is like you can put it on your arm or somewhere around your body, and you can run your own experiment. You are able to see how your glucose levels increase, decrease, depending on what type of food you eat, etc. But 100% avoid sugary drinks and snacks. It's preferable to drink a fruit juice or whatever. So then, what I was talking about, many of the key chemicals can interfere with the health of our gut microbes. So this includes artificial sweeteners, emulsifiers, and preservatives. None of these chemicals are naturally present in the food of any of our ancestors, and our gut microbes and genes or hormones will not have evolved to deal with them safely. They even add antibiotics, maybe. You can find antibiotics in cheap meat or cheap fish. All of these artificial additives that they add to the food we eat can have a huge impact on our microbiome, making our microbiome weak. So even though if we're eating good food mixed with Coca-Cola and a lot of super artificial food, our microbiome will not be able to absorb the nutrients in the most effective way. Then, for example, he talks about coffee, and then he mentions that coffee has different, like, everyone thinks maybe that drinking coffee is bad for them, but not for everyone, because, for example, people that tend to smoke tobacco or have other addictions, they need the double of caffeine quantity in order to have the same effect on someone that doesn't smoke tobacco or doesn't consume any other type of addiction. Then salt. We've all thought always that salt was something really bad, but we don't have all the same level of sensibility for salt. Some people may be more salt sensitive, other people less salt sensitive, the same for caffeine. Then he talks about supplements. He says that there are many studies that show that supplements are trash. He says that try to avoid them at all costs. Instead of, for example, if you have a cold or whatever, instead of taking B12 vitamins, zinc vitamins, just drink an orange juice with kiwi. Is the best way to get this, because we all think that this type of supplements come from a natural derivative or whatever, but actually they are chemically made in a factory in China with the aim to create something similar or to produce a similar effect in our body, but they are not extracted from the natural resource and put into this pill. It doesn't work like this. Therefore, he says that the amount of negative effects is higher than the positive effects that these supplements could have in your own body, like even fish, fatty acids, all of these things. Like, it's better simply to go to the natural fountain of resources and nutrients, to the natural way of acquiring these nutrients. Then as well, so this depends as well, right? Some people, but supplements in general are trash, 90%. So then breaking the fast, for example, we've always been told that breaking the fast is the most important meal of the day, blah, 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 but tribes generally have had in Africa, for example, and Latin America, all the ancient civilizations, they fasted for 14, 15 hours. So, and it's been proven that this can reduce insulin levels dramatically and lose weight. Some of us are programmed to prefer eating food earlier in the day and others later on the day, which may suit our unique personal metabolism and gut microbes. So again, maybe breakfast for some people is important and for other people is less important. However, the fact of fasting is good for your body to adapt. The best thing is to keep experimenting with your body. Fasting in the morning, fasting at night, fasting during the day, training before eating, training after eating, in order to measure your levels of energy, your performance, your concentration, etc. Again, it's different for everyone. Then, for example, talking about the meat and fish, he says that certain civilizations might be used for generations and thousands of years to consume certain products. For example, if you go to Asia, Asians have been eating mainly fish for thousands of years, right? Or maybe even if you go to India, there is a religion called Sikh or Sikh, something like this. They are the ones that they wear a big something like this on the head. They can't cut their hair, right? I'll leave you an image here. So these guys, they can't eat meat. Last time I was in Madrid, like 2 weeks ago, and I got picked up by an Uber driver. He was sick. He told me he never ate meat in his entire life, only vegetables. So sometimes, maybe for them, it's a suitable diet because they've been consuming only plants for generations and generations and generations, so their gut microbe got adapted for that, and their gut microbe gets all of the nutrients efficiently just from plants, from a plant-based diet. Then he talks, for example, about the allergy epidemic. He talks and he emphasizes the fact that allergy tests haven't been properly made. So he says that following the allergic tests, probably if everyone did it, everyone would have something, would be allergic to something, even though similar natural ingredients wouldn't have an effect on them due to the chemical reactions, due to the way it's done. Because basically, I don't know if you know these tests that they get your arm and they put under your skin multiple chemicals, trying to have a similar effect of how these nutrients could react. But basically, he says he disagrees with it, and he says that it's not really. I don't really want to enter into this because this allergic epidemic that we've been living, gluten-free, etc., is being all caused by the low quality food we've been eating. Me personally, I haven't really eaten really low quality food because I grew up here in the south of Spain. I followed a Mediterranean diet all my life, which means using olive oil to cook instead of butter, fish, meat, vegetables, a bit of everything, sun, the sea. So we have a healthy lifestyle here. But it's true that in USA, UK, in many of these countries, the quality of food in the supermarkets is really bad. So for you to get an idea, the UK consumes the most ultra-processed food out of 19 countries in Europe, with half of the food purchased being ultra-processed. In contrast, only 10% of the food purchased in Portugal is ultra-processed, despite being a poorer country. This is one of the reasons as well we bought a house in Lisbon. We got a house there because the quality of life is very similar to the one in Spain. We follow a Mediterranean diet. Food, you can have access to high quality food in restaurants, in supermarkets, everywhere. You have the sea, sun every day. All of these factors affect to your healthy lifestyle. And here that I mentioned ultra processed food, I wanted to say that people really don't have a clear idea of what ultra processed food means. Most of the food in the supermarket is processed, but there are three different levels of processed food. And the one you really need to avoid is ultra processed food, where it has, I think, more than 5 ingredients. And for example, what a lot of these factories tend to do in their packaging, they tend to give like natural names, natural like names to actually artificial names. For example, many times you may have seen carrot concentrate or rosemary extract, which are more appealing despite being equally refined and processed. So they want you to believe that a milkshake labeled as a source of calcium is healthy, despite the fact that it's loaded with sugar and you probably don't need the calcium. So many customers should scan these labels to check for additives and other perceived deadly chemicals such as those mentioned before. Then the calorie counting. Calorie counting is absurd, honestly. Like, it's impossible to have exact number of the calories you are taking because there are a huge amount of factors depending on it. The way you cook it, how do you cook it, what do you eat it with, what time of the day, what did you eat before, your gut microbes, etc. Therefore, calorie counting is completely a waste of time. It's true that the more you cook something, the higher the calories. Therefore, if you eat raw fish and then you eat the same piece of raw fish cooked, the cooked one will have higher levels of calories. And this actually something cool is that that's why the fire led to evolution, because the fire permitted people to spend less time hunting as they were fulfilled for longer, so they could have more time to think and try different things. Before, when they were eating only raw food, the calorie intake was much lower, so they had to keep eating and going hunting and everything all the time, much more often. However, after the fire, they were satisfied for a longer period of time, permitting them to think more, and this led to evolution, was one of the factors. That's why fire, the discovery of fire, was important. So I wanted to make this video short. This is some of the most important information that I saw here. Spoon-Fed is a good book, not bad, but I got bored. Like, after the half of the book, it was like, it could be summarized in 20 pages and it would be great. But this is what books are, right? Spoon-Fed by Team Spector. See you next week, guys.